We're on action items. Number 1, approval of purchase of equipment from Black Box to replace existing voice network that supports desktop telephones and a 5-year software and hardware support for $3,671,575.40. This came to ops on April 5th for
Consideration.
approval of this item would approve a 5-year contract for the telephone system upgrade with Black Box. And note, an FAQ attachment was added to the bar yesterday.
I move the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent to execute a 5-year contract with Black Box to provide a telephone system upgrade in the amount of $3,671,575.40 plus Washington State sales tax, and to take any necessary actions to implement the contract.
I second the motion.
Mr. Kroll, could you give us a brief introduction to this action item, please?
Yes. Good evening. John Kroll, Chief Information Officer. First, I'd like to thank all the teachers for what they do out there. An update from the introduction. We provided more information on the longevity of the product. We got a 10-year support letter from the vendor. I put some information about the average length is about 5 to 7 years, and our current system actually lasted about 20 years. So we're very confident that we have a good support plan and look forward to your consideration for this item.
Questions, comments, concerns from my colleagues? Director Patu.
I guess my concern is it says 5 years, but you're saying that it will go to 10 years in comparison to our last one that lasted a lot longer. But so is it actually 5 to 10 years that this will last?
Chances are it's going to last, 10 to 20 years, given the history of this vendor. In this current contract, we're signing a 5-year contract for support, which includes next day repair. After 5 years, that's when we will come with additional support, and that's when we may have the parts depot and that type of thing as we move forward. But the vendor has agreed to support the product for 10 years. So oftentimes, especially with consumer products, the vendor might only support it for like a year. With computers, you're lucky to get 3 years of support before it's hard to find those parts. With this vendor, they've agreed to provide support for those parts and for 10 years.
Thank
Mr.
you.
General Counsel, can you come to the box, please? Point of clarification, is the 10 years part of the contract and part of the bar, or do we need to amend said bar?
I apologize. I don't know. I have not seen their letter on 10 years, so I don't know whether it's incorporated into the contract or not. Perhaps Mr. Cole could answer how they've conveyed that to us.
We have it as a letter, and it will be part of the contract.
I would suggest that Mr. Kroll and Mr. Treat sit down, figure out whether we need an amendment so that the 10 years is legally binding. This is real money, and this is a terribly important contract for the district, especially with respect to emergency services. Director Burke.
Just a point of clarification as I look at the document here. It looks to me like the contract itself is 5 years, but the vendor is stating through written communications that their expectation is the product will be supportable for 10. But we do not have additional money in the contract which would be required to support it between that 5+ years. So creating an amendment
that's
would,
correct.
would require a financial commitment as well.
Do you all want to do a sidebar and we move on and we bring you in at number 7 to the action agenda?
Sure.
Thank you, sirs. Appreciate very much. Number 2, Bex 4, award construction contract P5099 to CDK.
Point of
Excuse me,
personal
sir?
privilege, or point
Please.
of process, or point of whatever. We have a motion and a second. Do we have to table it, or, I mean, what's the,
We can
just
table.
thinking Robert's
May
rules
I
here.
have a non-debatable motion to table this to after action agenda item number 6?
So moved.
Seconded.
Those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Thank
No,
you.
Not no, sorry, I meant I was an aye for, sorry.
I appreciate the heads up. Thank you, sir. Number 2, Bex 4, award construction contract P5099 to CDK Construction Services, Inc. for the Eckstein Middle School Seismic Improvement Project. This came before OPS on April 5th for
Approval.
approval of this item would authorize the superintendent to enter into a construction contract in the amount of $2,917,672 for the Eckstein Middle School Seismic Improvement Project. Motion, please.
I move that the school board authorize the superintendent to execute construction contract P5099 to CDK Construction Services, Inc. for the Eckstein Middle School Seismic Improvements Project in the amount of $2,917,672, including alternate numbers 1 and 2, plus Washington State sales tax with any minor additions, deletions, and modifications deemed necessary by the superintendent, and to take any necessary action to implement the contract.
I second the motion.
Questions, comments, concerns from my colleagues? We discussed this previously on introduction. Questions, comments, concerns from my colleagues? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Burke,
Aye.
Director DeWolf,
Aye.
Director Geary,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Patu,
Aye.
Director Pinkham,
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Number 3, approval of guiding principles for the Building Excellence BEX 5 capital levy. This came before OPS April 5th for
Consideration?
approval of this item would approve the board's guiding principles for the BEX 5 capital levy. And I'll note that the action report was edited since introduction. May I have the motion, please?
I move that the board approve the guiding principles for the BEX 5 capital levy as attached to this board action report.
I second the motion.
Questions, comments, concerns from my colleagues? And may I state a personal thank you to the Chair of Operations for a heavy lift on this and for working in a collaborative fashion with the rest of your colleagues and with senior staff.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for working on this. Just as a recap, what this does is it sets our guiding principles for the BEX 5 levy, the things that are important to us. And for further clarification, which wasn't clear when upon introduction, that we've added to the bar now to make it more clear, these guiding principles will be used to assist us in our decision making around BEX, because they get turned into scores that are for each individual guiding principle, as well as in the policy. There's also some priorities that we have listed. Each of these get a score, which will help us inform our decision making on BEX and our prioritization. And staff will be bringing the specifics of those scoring, the actual calculations, what's going into those things. So for example, equity will have various factors that go into determining what the scoring rubric is. And for each of these guiding principles, as well as the priorities that are stated in the policy 6901, they will come to us in a work session on May 30th, Dr. Herndon. if you could elaborate a little bit more, I'm not feeling very eloquent at the
Yeah,
moment.
that's correct. Flip Hernan, Associate Superintendent for Operations and Facilities. Director Mack is correct. We do have a work session scheduled for the end of May, and at that time, taking these guiding principles into account, we would have that ability to look at and receive feedback from the board about this is what the scoring looks like for each of these guiding principles, and then have any feedback and modify if necessary.
Director Burke?
One question, one comment. So regarding the rubrics and metrics, obviously that's a really important body of work. Is there clarity around what that process looks like to get from the guiding principles to an actual rubric document that we can use? Is that going to be done at the work session or prior to the work session, or using, how does that work?
So staff have actually already started working on this. So this is, the priorities that were stated in the policy have been scored and adopted by previous boards for previous BECS or BTA. Those have been included in the building conditions report. So there is overlap between those priorities and our priorities, and in working with staff, I think we've culled it down to 7 distinct names, and some of those will use some of the existing rubrics that are in the conditions report. Equity is one that needs to be created, and staff is already working on that. I've already created a draft chart, and so that'll be coming together, and all that information will be available for us.
Okay, so to mirror back, at the work session, we will have a near final work product that we'll be able to look at, comment on, or will that be final, what comes to the work session, and we'll be applying it?
No, it will not be final at that point. It'll be
Okay.
that this is what we're proposing. This is how these are the specific calculations for each of the priorities and how the rubrics are set up. And staff will take feedback on that. Additionally, another bar that is coming forward next is the task force. If that is approved as well, the task force will also review those and their matrices and provide additional recommendations and thoughts to us to give us an additional oversight.
Thank you. So then the comment relates to the second guiding principle about right-sized capacity. And I've mentioned before, some of my concerns around how we calculate that. I want to be really cognizant that if the state is asking us to reduce our K-3 staffing ratios, but is not providing full funding for the capital infrastructure, I'm reluctant to go out to our voters and ask them to do that. And so if all of our computations of right size use the adjusted ratios, then that has the effect of creating essentially voter-funded class size reduction. And so I'm just cognizant that that's a component of our BECS dollars that we have to either decide, yes, we're open to that, we're looking to our voters to fund that as compared to the state. My personal feeling as a director is that that's not the highest priority. So I just want to understand how that fits in to the dialogue, and it doesn't have to be now, because I know that's probably not a good dais concept, but as part of our work session, if we could understand that.
Clarification question, if I might. When you say voter funded, are you talking about local levy voter funded?
Yes, I would be talking about funded through our BECS 5. If we have a right-size capacity that is based on state-adjusted ratios, but that doesn't consider state-allocated extra capital dollars.
Unfunded mandate.
Yes, thank you.
Or partially funded, unfunded mandate, because there have been some K-3 class size reduction dollars that have come down from the state, not sufficient by any means to the need. Your point is duly noted, and in having conversations with staff around the development of the facilities master plan and the capacity analysis, we've had that conversation around, do we show the capacity analysis, what right size capacity is, including K-3 class size reduction and not including, and having those two separated out so that we can actually weigh those.
Thank you. I do understand that this is a complicated issue and that we're partway through it and that it's partly funded, and so it may not be possible to extract it, but I just want to be conscious that at some point we lose our opportunity to have this discussion.
I have a point of clarification, if I might. So previous boards have put together guiding principles. How is it that we missed Rainier Beach High School and some of our other Title I high needs schools for so long?
It's a good question. I can't necessarily answer since I wasn't around during those conversations, but I think as with most levies, just as you as a board are going through this, you do have your guiding principles that you adopt, and in some cases didn't prioritize what those are. So you have, let's say, 5 guiding principles of equal weight. And then as a board debating which items, given all of the feedback from community and the size of the particular levy, you feel you can deliver on, noting some of the major issues that we've talked about: safety and security, building condition, and capacity. And that's, you know, I've had conversations, I think, with all of you about that kind of balance that you have between capacity and condition, and it's a challenge. Can't really go all one way, can't really go all the other. So it's how you figure out what that is. But as far as I know, I can't explain previous decisions about including or not including projects on previous
Okay,
levies.
and it's my understanding we didn't have a race and equity component on the previous guiding principles.
Correct.
So if we are going to be consistent on policy 0030, would it then necessarily follow that dollars and commitment follow to our high needs schools?
Well, I think there are a couple of ways that you can look at that, but I believe the intent of 0030 is to take a look at what the equitable distribution of resources are throughout the district, and that includes capital dollars. And again, previously for BEX 4, policy 0030 didn't exist, at least in the implementation phase of that. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to see how that particular policy looks in action for a very public and sizable investment of capital dollars throughout our city.
Director Mack, please.
I think that's particularly why I'm really excited about adopting these guiding principles, presumably that we do adopt them, because we have identified that equity is a priority, and we will have a scoring matrix. So we are going to have that as part of our decision making, and it will be more clear as to potentially which projects might rate higher on an equity score versus other projects, then that will help inform our decision making. And I feel really proud of doing that, of working to ensure that we state that priority very clearly.
Other questions, comments, concerns? Dr. Larry Nyland.
I would predict. Got principles on one end that are kind of vague and squishy. I agree with the principles. They're great principles, but they don't vote. So ultimately you have to balance them out. And then we're talking about a rubric and a scoring mechanism. My prediction is that in the end it's going to be a discussion about that, and that depending on how rigorous the rubric is, then it's going to be, well, how does this one turn out? How does that one turn out? And if we weight equity a little bit more, what happens over here? If we weight age of buildings a little bit more, how does that happen? I think Flip gave a great answer in terms of Rainier Beach. As far as I know, none of us know the real answer to that. But even if you just constrain it to the Meng report and the condition of the building, that we've paid somebody thousands of dollars who know how to do this to go through every single building, you still get to this point where Rainier Beach would beg to differ, but I think there's a lot of schools on that list that have greater need, according to the engineers, than Rainier Beach does. So you're going to figure out, well, how much money goes to capacity, how much money goes to condition, how much money goes to these other issues like safety, seismic, et cetera. And then we're going to look at the equity part and say, who benefits, and is that fair and equitable, and should we reposition some of the money, and probably, quite frankly, take it away from some of the buildings that maybe have a condition issue and use more of it for equity, or take it away from some of the places where we have capacity needs and give it to equity. So I think it's a great opportunity, and it's a great exercise, and we know that there's not going to be enough money in the end to do it all, so it's still going to come down to tough decisions.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, concerns? Director Pinkham.
So flashing back to the time when Loyal Heights was being constructed, and we had some community concerned about play space, and is also brought up in public testimony. In the guiding principles, we do mention sufficient core spaces and safe playgrounds, and then right size capacity, we mentioned to match student enrollment demand and appropriate lot coverage. Are those two combined? We're assuming then that means that we'll have safe playgrounds that are also going to be appropriate size? Or do we need to call out specifically that we want to make sure that we have safe playgrounds that are appropriate sized? Do we need to specifically call that out?
Director Mack, and then Dr. Herndon, please.
So my sense in how we have laid it out here in the guiding principles is that it's stated as a priority, safe playgrounds and enough space, and it's stated in both ways. It is the challenge when we look at specific projects, whether or not they're actually potentially reducing lot coverage. So those are the kind of things that we will be looking at when we score these things for right size capacity. Is it meeting this? So I do believe that it is included in the priorities, and that it more clearly states that is our goal.
I would agree with that. I think each particular location and building has challenges that are unique to that site. Not all of our sites are the same. They vary in their acreage size, they vary in the age of the buildings, they vary in the core spaces that they already have available. So to compare a place like Magnolia, which is tiny, doesn't have 40,000 square feet to begin with of play space. There's no way to even incorporate that much play space for that particular spot. So I think, to your point, to try and look at each of the projects and say, okay, if we're looking at the design of these schools, outdoor play space is important for the development of our children as well as the interior space. What's the best balance that we have given the lot and uniqueness for each one of those projects?
Director Pinkham.
Yeah, so like with the Webster now, and like building that gymnasium, and how much the outdoor play space that's taking up, how do we measure those and come to terms? And so those kind of challenges. I know it's going to be tough. We need the space. Class size room reduction, it means we need more room so we can have smaller teacher to student ratios. But again, if we're not being funded for it, and we're limited on the land space that we have, it's going to be difficult. So I hope that we will make sure that we keep both of those in mind and not treat them separately.
I think what you might be able to see even is in the possible projects, we can take a look at what that balance is. We strive for an acre of exterior play space for each of the elementary schools, and for the most part, most of our schools do have that. There are some clearly that don't, though, just because of the size of the lot. 2 acres is tough to get half of that as exterior play space.
Director Mack.
I also want to, since you used Magnolia as an example, Magnolia used to have a beautiful play area at the back of it, which is now a city park.
Correct.
So our joint use agreements can come into play in some of our facilities when we reopen buildings and think about as well. So I just want to remind us of those opportunities of working with the city to potentially find ways to utilize these parks that were school playgrounds previously.
And I would suggest to you that the MOU in November has a couple of hooks that we can hang our hat on. Other comments, questions, concerns? Director Burke? Other comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director DeWolf,
Aye.
Director Geary, Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Patu,
Aye.
Director Pinkham,
Aye.
Director Burke,
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Number 4, Task Force for Facilities Master Plan. Approval of this item would create a task force intended to support the school board's oversight of capital planning by reviewing elements of the district's draft long-range facilities master plan. Please note that on May 8th, the action report and attachment were edited. Motion, please.
I move that the school board authorize and approve the formation and charge of the task force for facilities master plan as attached to this board action report.
I might add, this did go through executive committee. It's not listed on here, but it came through executive committee, and our ops chair picked up the baton with the assistance of staff and support of staff. Second.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Director Mack.
So this task force, at the moment, we don't have a task force or advisory committee focused on capacity facility planning activities. We have in the past. We just had the high school boundaries task force, which ended their work. Last year there was a capacity management task force. We do have the BACS BTA oversight committee, and they do a little forward looking, but it's not their main work. Their main work is kind of looking as the projects are coming through to review those projects as they're coming through. The facilities master plan is the basis of our planning for all of our buildings across the district, and that plan is what informs our selection of BACS projects. That plan is being worked on by staff right now. It has a pretty long table of contents, and it's comprehensive in terms of capacity analysis, enrollment projections, the conditions assessment, all the buildings that are not opened, et cetera. There's lots of pieces of the facilities master plan. Because of the short time frame that we have for adopting the priorities of projects for BEX 5, and the need to have some support from the community and additional community engagement, some oversight support. This task force will specifically look at 2 key aspects of the facilities master plan, not the entire thing because we don't have as much time to do the entire thing, but the 2 key aspects will be the capacity analysis, to review that and provide any recommendations in general of, yes, that area of the city seems to need more seats for X reasons, that sort of thing, as well as the scoring of our priorities, to review those and give an extra eye on, yes, the scoring kind of makes sense, or you didn't consider this aspect, and that sort of thing. So that can help inform the facilities master plan, as well as us with BEX 5 project selection. The other thing that was added to this bar, and was a part of it before, but also is more clearly stated, is that not only is equity one of the priorities that will be part of the scoring matrix that the task force will be reviewing, and that we've stated that, but we will be using the racial equity toolkit with this task force. Step 1, I've already drafted Step 2 is actually specifically reviewing data by community, so that is exactly what the task force is doing. And we will have, with the task force, we'll have some training. We'll start the conversation off around racial equity. That's how we're going to launch the task force. And so I'm super excited about the support from staff. It's a short time frame, but I think we can do some really good work and get some community engagement on this.
Dr. Herndon, it's my impression that staff is very much in favor of this work.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues. Director DeWolf, please.
Thank you, President Harris. I just wanted to reiterate too, I spent a good conversation with Eden earlier this week in trying to really be thorough in our commitment to racial equity, and I don't want it to necessarily get lost, but one of the things we're trying on this task force, and I hope will be a model for how all of our future task forces, committees, sub-work groups, et cetera, commissions, councils, advisory groups, all of those folks, what we're excited to do for this, what I think is different than anything else, is that each of the folks will participate in a racial equity training that will ground the work, and so this is kind of a new concept, and so I'm really excited about the addition of that, and so thank you, Eden, for working together on that. And I will be eagerly awaiting to hear how that goes with that team and that group, and then looking to maybe find a way to include that in our future task forces and committee, subcommittee work. So thank you for finding the common ground there. Okay, that was it.
I have a question for General Counsel. Our other task forces that we're launching presently, the Information Technology Advisory Council and the Advanced Learning, there's nothing in those bars or charges that would prevent racial equity training, is there?
No, absolutely not.
Wouldn't mandate it, but it wouldn't prevent it.
No, there's absolutely nothing in either of those charges that would prevent that.
Then I would respectfully suggest that the senior staff whose portfolios those reside in would take the hint. I think that's a good modeling. Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns from my colleagues? Director Mack, Director Burke?
Yeah, I just wanted to add really quick that I believe that we're ready, if this passes tonight, to advertise this out, potentially by the end of the week. And the advertisement will be directly sent to folks that have participated on enrollment planning / capacity facilities management task forces in the past, the experts that we know of, so folks like from the Capacity Management Task Force, VEX BTA, et cetera, will get direct emails on notifying them of this task force and asking for their potential participation, as well as broadly advertised.
And who on the comms team is leading community engagement for this? And where's the community engagement plan for it?
That one, Director and Mac and I were speaking about that as we were talking about how to broadcast this out best. We were going to speak after tonight's meeting to figure out what our best plan forward is. So I can't answer that right now, but we want to identify that and make sure we can get this out as quickly as possible.
But as well as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. That was a concern of the last couple of task force bars, and if we're going to do it, let's do it right.
Yes.
Other comments, questions, concerns? Director Burke.
Thank you for your comments, which almost covered it. I just wanted to understand the timing and how we were doing the outreach, when we were doing the outreach. It sounds like that is a little bit of an evolving plan, but because it's potentially a little bit narrow recruiting, more narrow recruitment, we already have a target. The timeline on this shows basically May through August. Do we actually anticipate that work will start in May, or is that something that, that's 3 weeks?
I think that instead of, sometimes task forces go out and say, okay, we're going to be meeting every Monday, every third Monday at this time, and that's already set before the task force's members have been selected. In this case, because of the short-term nature of the work, we essentially have June, July, August, and there's not a lot going on in the district in July, so we have less than 3 months, and we're envisioning maybe 4 to 6 meetings. So essentially, the idea is to see who might be available and is interested in engaging, and work together to find timing that will work best for most people, as well as the facilitator. And we also need to narrow in on exactly how those agendas would flow. But I believe that we can very effectively tee up the sessions so that they have information ahead of time. We have the questions clear that we're asking them to answer and that sort of thing. So.
Okay. The other aspect of that is recognizing that this work is to provide recommendations for this facilities master plan. Is there a date certain at which the facilities master plan will be anchored?
This is a very good question. The first draft of it is supposed to be coming to ops June, and then it's supposed to be adopted in August, if I know
That's correct.
the timing. So that's the plan at this point. Our BEX 5 project list, et cetera, has to be adopted by end of November at the very latest. So there's a little bit of squishy room in there for the facilities master plan to get completed, but the goal right now is to have it come and be finalized in August.
Thank you.
And so the task force is working in parallel with staff on that.
And would we be having a work session for the entire board with the task force's participation prior to it coming to the full board? Do you anticipate that?
I would suspect so. Currently, I do believe we have a May work session, a June work session, and an August work session with the board around BEX 5. So I would guess probably not the May one, maybe the June one, or definitely the August one. So we have tried to schedule out. I don't know if we have a date yet for August, but I do believe we have May and June set already.
Terrific. Dr. Nyland, please.
I'm concerned. We've got a lot of players. So we've got, we've tried to get public engagement. We haven't gotten a lot. We're now trying to set up a task force. I think we need to be very careful to clarify in the beginning what the level of decision-making is. In my mind, maybe not in the mind of the board, but that should be clarified. They are not a recommending, they are not a deciding body, and we're in the process of having political conversations with the city of Seattle. So we're trying to balance public engagement that we've said that we want to do more of. We haven't done that, in my mind, very successfully yet. We've done what we usually do, and we've done that well. But when we go out to the voters and ask for $1 billion, and we point backwards and say that we have engaged, how many? 125 people so far?
In person.
In person.
Correct.
And then we go through a rubric, which, again, what I said earlier, I don't think it will be conclusive. I don't think we'll be able to point to the rubric and say we scored everything perfectly and we put the cutoff right here and there'll be no questions about that. I think that, just as we heard tonight, people will see different parts of the rubric the way that they would like to see it, and we'll hear back from them in those ways. And as we've had the conversation with the city, recognizing that Rainier Beach is a big project, recognizing that high school number 12 is a big project, and safety is important, there's not a lot of money left over. So, or we need to go out for a really, really, really big ask. And I won't say what I was going to say.
Thank you.
We need to, we're just setting in play a lot of moving pieces, and I'm worried about how all of them are going to land in a way that, kind of no good deed goes unpunished. It's kind of like we're going to try really, really hard, and I'll stop.
Thank you. Director Mack.
I agree that, the entire process of developing BEX 5 is, all of those moving parts are already in play. It's all there. What setting the guiding principles does, what doing the rubrics does, what having a task force that engages in the conversations around what the capacity analysis is, not telling us, yes, do this project. They're just telling us capacity analysis, yes, in this area of the city there may need to be additional seats for such and such. And then also looking specifically at the priorities and the way that those are scored. They're not tasked with giving us specific recommendations on specific projects. They're helping us to support the analysis that staff is doing, that we are going to be relying on to do our decision making. And I think that deliberation will add value to our process and help us clarify. It still makes the decisions difficult, and we'll still have those. But I feel a lot more comfortable having some additional analysis and support to do this work and be able to make those decisions soundly.
Director Burke.
From the conversation that I'm hearing here, would it be a valid assessment to say that this task force is like a public way of helping us identify our potential blind spots?
Yes. Yes, Director Burke. Yes.
Thank you.
And I would add in that perhaps by being better listeners, had we not closed 9 schools some years ago, and had we had a collaborative conversation, would be much farther ahead in both the monetary and the trust departments. Roll call, please.
Director Geary,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Pinkham,
Aye.
Director Patu,
Aye.
Director Burke,
Aye.
Director DeWolf,
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
This motion